So I want you to picture a massive server farm, just humming with cold, hard data, millions of microchips, endless algorithms crunching numbers in this completely rigid binary environment.
Right, highly controlled, very sterile.
Exactly. Now, pull your mind completely away from that and picture a special education classroom.
Mm.
It is loud, it is unpredictable, and it requires some of the most intense emotion, empathy, and individualized human care on the planet.
Two completely opposite worlds.
Literally nothing in common.
Right.
Historically, they shouldn't mix. But today, they are colliding in this really massive way. Welcome to the Deep Dive, by the way. Today, we are pulling from a really eye-opening presentation titled AI for Special Education Professional, along with this detailed infographic on the psychology of metacognition.
And the mission here isn't just to, talk about tech in schools.
Right. No. We are exploring what happens when artificial intelligence is forced to navigate deeply human problems, and what that ultimately reveals about how you and I actually learn, think, and process the world.
It's an incredible collision to witness, honestly. Because when you look at special education, you are looking at professionals carrying a nearly impossible load.
Oh, yeah. The burnout is real.
Right. They are trying to balance mountains of legal and administrative paperwork with the intense cognitive demand of caring for students who need highly individualized support.
And a lot of patience.
Exactly. So what we're seeing in these sources is a sudden fundamental shift. We are looking at a completely new mechanism for educators to manage their time, but more importantly, to manage their cognitive load.
And this shift happened seemingly overnight, didn't it? I mean, the presentation we're looking at actually boils the catalyst down to a very specific recipe.
Yeah, it's a fascinating combination.
It really is.
Yeah.
It basically says it took a massive influx of NVIDIA hardware, combined it with essentially the entire scraped text of the internet, and then processed all of that using OpenAI's transformer algorithms.
Mix those three things together, and boom.
Right. November 2022, ChatGPT drops and completely changes everything. But okay, let's unpack this. Because the label we slap on this is artificial intelligence. It implies a brain, right?
It does imply that, yeah.
So looking at these materials, when a special ed teacher inputs a student's profile, does this technology actually understand what that child needs?
No, and I'm so glad you brought that up because that is the most critical hurdle to clear before anyone even opens one of these tools.
So it doesn't understand anything.
Not a single thing. It is not a brain, and it is not thinking. To grasp how this works in a classroom, we really have to look at the mechanism of what an AI actually is. Underneath the hood, it is purely a prediction machine. It's algorithmic reasoning.
So it's just autocomplete on steroids.
That is exactly what it is. When you use one of these models, whether it's OpenAI's ChatGPT, Anthropic's Claude, Google's Gemini, Google Notebook LM, or even the international ones listed in the source, like the Chinese models DeepSeek and Kimi.
Right, there's so many players now.
There really are. But none of them are reading your prompt and comprehending it. What they do is they break your words down into mathematical tokens.
Tokens, okay.
Yeah. And then it looks at the billions of pages it was trained on and calculates the statistical probability of what the next word in your sentence should be. It's calculating, not comprehending.
Wow.
So it gives you the most probable answer, which is very different from giving you the truthful answer.
Which perfectly explains the massive flaws outlined in the presentation.
Right. Because it's playing a game of statistical probability, it suffers from what the tech world calls hallucinations.
Where it just makes things up.
Exactly. It will confidently invent facts that do not exist. And even more dangerously, it suffers from sycophancy. And it has a limited memory, which they call the context window.
Okay, wait, sycophancy? Meaning it just desperately wants to please you? So if I lead it down a completely wrong path, it won't correct me.
Nope. It will just double down.
It'll just agree with my wrong assumption. Because statistically, a conversational response tends to align with the prompt.
You've got it.
So it's less like an all-knowing oracle and more like an overly eager, totally inexperienced intern who is terrified of getting fired, so they just constantly guess the answers to keep you happy.
That analogy hits the nail on the head. And this is exactly where the dynamic shifts. Because if the AI is just a blind prediction machine, an eager but hallucinating intern, then the human operating it has to be incredibly sharp.
They have to be the adult in the room.
Yes, the human must be the absolute master of their own thinking. And what's fascinating here is this is where the presentation intersects beautifully with the infographic on metacognition.
Right, thinking about thinking.
Exactly. If you are going to supervise this technology, you have to be excellent at thinking about thinking.
Which almost sounds like a riddle. But the infographic traces how this concept completely flipped the world of psychology. For a long time, the traditional view of learning was that a student was just an empty bucket.
Right. You just pour information in and hopefully they retain it.
But metacognition completely shifted that dynamic. The sources walk through this whole evolution. Like, it started with John H. Flavel back in 1976, looking at problem solving. And then in 1979, he linked it to monitoring cognition.
Yeah, and then it evolved further with Anne Brown in 1987, who brought in the ideas of planning and evaluating your own learning.
And finally, up to Schra and Moshman in 1995, linking it to self-regulated learning. It's just this huge shift from seeing a learner as a passive sponge to seeing them as an active architect of their own mind.
It really is. It isn't just about knowing a fact. It's about planning how you are going to learn, monitoring your progress in real time, and evaluating if your strategy actually worked.
The sources make this really tangible, too. Like, metacognition isn't just a vague theory. It's that physical feeling of pausing before you start a task to ask, wait, what is my actual goal here?
Right, setting an intent.
Or it's the ability to feel yourself getting confused while reading a dense paragraph and actively making the choice to stop, reread, or try a different strategy. It turns you from someone just receiving information into the director of your own learning movie.
You were the one yelling cut when a scene isn't working.
Exactly.
And if we applied that concept of the learning architect to a professional using AI, you start to see why the human is the non-negotiable center of this equation.
Because the AI doesn't have any of that.
Zero.
Boring.
The AI can generate text in seconds, but it has zero metacognition. It cannot monitor its own confusion. It cannot evaluate if its output is actually helpful or if it just hallucinated a fake law.
The human has to provide all of the metacognitive oversight.
Precisely.
Okay, well, wait, let's stop right there for a second. You just said it hallucinates and makes up facts, and it doesn't know when it's lying. If we bring this back to special education, we are talking about highly sensitive, legally binding documents.
Oh, absolutely.
The paperwork in special ed is legendary. You have medical histories, behavioral assessments, and strict legal requirements. If the AI is just guessing the most probable next word, putting that into an official student record sounds incredibly dangerous.
It is.
I mean, it could literally ruin a child's educational track.
It is incredibly dangerous if you don't have a rigid framework, which is why the presentation establishes an absolute, non-negotiable rule before a teacher ever types a single word into a prompt.
Protect student privacy first.
Yes. You must strip out all personally identifiable information, or PII. This isn't just a suggestion, it's a strict professional and legal responsibility.
The mantra they use in the source is, when in doubt, leave it out.
And they mean it. You never use a student's real name. You swap it for student A. You never use their exact date of birth. You replace it with, say, a 7-year-old.
Right. Scrub the school name, the ID numbers.
Crucially, any specific medical diagnoses or unique medications that could identify that child in a database, you are basically feeding the AI an anonymous skeleton of the situation.
Okay, so once the data is completely anonymized, how does an educator actually use this eager, guessing intern to help with the paperwork mountain? Because I know diagnosticians and facilitators spend hours, sometimes days, just sifting through scattered observation notes.
Oh, yeah. Notes from different teachers, thick medical files, reading scores. It's overwhelming.
So they do all that to write comprehensive individual evaluations and these things called PLAAFP statements.
Right. The PLAAFPs present levels of academic achievement and functional performance.
Right. It's essentially a massive baseline and a highly detailed snapshot of exactly where that student is right now so they can track progress.
Synthesizing 50 pages of raw, conflicting notes into one cohesive guideline is incredibly mentally draining work. And this is strategy 2 from the presentation using AI for data summarization.
But wait, if we use AI to summarize crucial special ed data, aren't we risking those hallucinations making it into a child's official baseline, even if it is anonymous?
We are, and that is why the AI is never, ever the final author. The presentation explicitly lays out a multi-step process, and step 4 is the critical one: always read, edit, and verify using professional knowledge.
So the human is the final filter.
Always. You use the AI to do the heavy lifting of synthesis. It reads the 50 pages of anonymized notes, detects the trends, and drafts a structured narrative. Like, it spots that 3 different teachers noted the student struggles with transitions after lunch.
Ah, okay. So the AI builds the framework.
Exactly. But the human professional, using their hard-earned expertise, has to read every single line, verify it against the raw data, and take absolute ownership of the final document. The human retains the final authority.
So it's not about outsourcing the decision making. It's about outsourcing the raw data processing to buy back time.
Buy back time and reduce cognitive fatigue.
And that is what I found so compelling in these sources. Because if special educators can conquer that mountain of administrative paperwork in a fraction of the time, what do they do with the hours they just got back?
They do what they do best. They focus directly on custom tailoring the student's learning experience.
Yes. The example of strategy one, creating custom materials, was wild to me. So let's say a speech therapist needs to work on specific articulation sounds with a student. Normally, they might spend 45 minutes manually writing a story that targets those exact phonetic sounds.
And they have to weave in the student's hyper-specific interests just to keep them engaged.
Right. If the kid is obsessed with trains, or specific dinosaur, or superheroes, the therapist is painstakingly writing sentences to match all of that to their individualized education program, their IEP goals.
It's a labor of love, but it's incredibly time-consuming.
It really is.
Yeah.
But with an AI assisted, they can take that exact IEP goal, type in the student's reading level and their obsession with, say, the T-Rex, and generate a perfectly tailored, engaging narrative in 2 minutes.
2 minutes instead of 45.
From 45 minutes down to 2 minutes. It's just incredible.
And that level of rapid customization doesn't just stay in the special education room. The presentation highlights Strategy 3 multi-tiered differentiation, which shows how this acts as a lifeline for general education teachers as well.
Oh, because special ed staff are constantly fielding requests from their colleagues to help adapt grade-level curriculum.
Constantly. Imagine a general education teacher has a student with dysgraphia, which is a neurological condition where the brain struggles to translate thoughts into written words on a page.
So the student understands the science lesson perfectly, but they physically cannot write the essay.
Right. The special ed teacher can step in, take that standard science assignment, and instantly use AI to generate 3 distinct versions of it.
The sources give such clear examples for this. Like, version 1 might take the reading passage and simplify it into decodable text with shorter sentences for emerging readers.
Version 2 takes the essay requirement and translates it into a visual step-by-step checklist.
And then version 3 embeds sentence frames, literally scaffolding the writing process by giving the student starters like, I think blank because blank.
It allows the educator to instantly match the cognitive demand of the assignment to the specific cognitive profile of the student.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. It's like having a magical photocopier in the teacher's workroom. You don't just put a piece of paper in and get a duplicate out. You put the standard curriculum in, and the machine instantly translates it into the exact cognitive language every single diverse learner in that room needs to succeed.
I love that. The magical photocopier is a great visualization, but, adapting worksheets and lesson plans is really only half the battle in this field.
True.
A massive and frankly often hidden part of special education involves navigating the complex, highly emotional, and heavily legal landscape with the student's family. Adapting a reading passage is a technical challenge. Building a bridge of trust with a grieving or frustrated parent, that is a profoundly human challenge.
And, special education is just notorious for building these unintentional walls made out of heavy legal jargon.
Oh, absolutely. The acronyms alone are overwhelming.
Right, like FAPE, which is Free Appropriate Public Education, or Prior Written Notice.
Procedural safeguards is another big one.
Yeah, procedural safeguards. I mean, even if English is your first language, reading these documents feels like you're reading a tax code.
It really does.
And then you put a parent in that room, and they're already feeling vulnerable about their child's future. And if English is their second language, a wall of legal jargon just creates fear and disengagement.
Which is why Strategy 4 from the presentation is so powerful, using AI to build a culturally responsive bridge.
Right, taking those legal summons and translating them.
Exactly. You can take those dense, legally mandated notices, feed them into the AI, and prompt it to rewrite the core information in plain English at a 5th grade reading level. And more importantly, you can instruct the AI to use warm, supportive, and compassionate language.
And then you can have it translate that friendly, welcoming notice into the family's home language, Spanish, Vietnamese, whatever they need.
You can. But, and this is but the source material includes a massive red flag here that we have to
Right, the
emphasize.
AI isn't perfect.
Far from it. AI translations are mechanical, they lack cultural nuance, and they can sometimes completely botch local idioms. The strict rule provided is that you must always have a bilingual staff member review the translation.
Always.
Yes, a bilingual staff member or a qualified interpreter has to verify it before it ever goes to a family. Again, the human retains the final authority, but even with that necessary review step, you are transforming a cold, terrifying legal document into an inviting, accessible bridge for that family.
That makes total sense. And speaking of families, that leads to what I thought was the absolute wildest part of this presentation.
The simulations.
Yes, Strategy 5, dealing with high-stress ARDs. So dealing with the paperwork is one thing, but sitting in the actual meetings, they're called ARD meetings, admission, review, and dismissal.
These are the formal, legally binding meetings where the student's plan is finalized.
Right. And the sources note that these rooms can be incredibly tense. You have parents who might be grieving a new diagnosis, frustrated by a lack of progress, or just totally distrustful of the school system.
The stakes are incredibly high and the emotions are raw.
So the presentation suggests using AI as a simulator for these high-stress meetings. An educator can set up a fictional, anonymized scenario and literally ask the chatbot to role-play as a highly upset, defensive parent.
A sparring partner.
Exactly. The teacher then sits at their keyboard and practices de-escalation techniques. They practice active listening and compassionate redirects in a totally safe, low-stakes environment. But, okay, I have to push back hard on this.
Go for it.
We spent the first half of this deep dive establishing that this machine is just a cold algorithm predicting the next word. It doesn't have a brain, it doesn't have a heart, and it certainly doesn't feel anything. So what does this all mean? Can an unthinking piece of code actually teach a human being how to be more empathetic in a highly volatile emotional room?
It's a great question. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, it isn't teaching empathy at all. It can't.
Because it doesn't feel anything.
Right. What it is doing is providing a sparring partner for the teacher to exercise their own metacognition. Think back to what metacognition actually feels like. It's the ability to pause, monitor your own confusion, and regulate your emotional response.
Oh, wow. Okay.
When a teacher is role-playing with a chatbot that is simulating an aggressive or fearful response, the AI isn't teaching them empathy. The teacher gets to reflect on their own triggers.
I see. It's not about the machine's emotions, it's about the teacher's reaction.
Exactly. They get to practice tolerating the intense discomfort of a conflict. They get to evaluate, when the parent says this, do I get defensive? Do I shut down? They are monitoring their own cognition.
Yes, they practice their own emotional regulation before they ever step foot in the actual room with a real vulnerable parent. It's literally a flight simulator. You wouldn't put a pilot in a real plane during a thunderstorm for their very first lesson, right?
No, definitely not. You put them in a flight simulator so they can practice their own reactions to chaos in a place where nobody gets hurt.
That is profound. So when we zoom out and look at all of this, the ultimate equation presented across both of these sources is just brilliantly simple.
Human plus AI.
Yes. The true power of this technology in a field as delicate as special education isn't the AI alone. It's human plus AI. The algorithm doesn't replace the teacher's hard-earned expertise, their profound empathy, or the delicate relationships they build with families.
Not at all. It simply removes the busy work.
It clears the brush so the human can do more of what only a human can do.
That is the absolute core takeaway here. And for anyone listening who is maybe overwhelmed by the idea of integrating this, the call to action from the presentation is very grounding. Start small.
Don't try to boil the ocean.
Right. You don't need to revolutionize your entire workflow tomorrow. Pick one strategy. Find one single pain point. Maybe it's writing that weekly parent update or drafting a single baseline or just creating one visual checklist.
Anonymize your data, strip out the PII, and just try writing one prompt.
Refine it and share what works. Remember that you have to speak the language of AI to unlock this potential.
You really have to clearly, specifically, and meticulously tell that eager intern exactly what you want. Which actually leaves us with one final thought to mull over today before we wrap up.
Let's hear it.
Our sources define metacognition as thinking the rigorous act of planning, monitoring, and evaluating. And they define AI prompting as learning to carefully state your goals and monitor the output for hallucinations.
Right.
So, if getting a good result from AI requires us to meticulously plan our request, critically evaluate its accuracy, and constantly refine our strategy. Is the simple act of interacting with an AI actually acting as a daily workout for our own metacognition?
Oh, that's interesting.
Right. Like by trying to guide the machine, are we accidentally becoming better, sharper learning architects ourselves?
It's definitely a workout for the mind.
It really is something to think about. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.